We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
Welcome, Mr. Lawrence. You have 3 minutes beginning now.
I'm a little confused at something. Brian Caputo came up in front of everybody and told us about the financial situation and how it was one of the worst he's seen, and it's not a temporary situation, and that our bond rating is at risk at some point. And we heard all about the census and the lack of taxes, and we had to raise the grocery tax to, cover all kinds of problems. We heard that we're 30 million, it's probably 40. We're seeing change orders already starting to come in. And somehow, in Infrastructure Committee this week, Chief of Staff stood up here, and we're going to spend $800,000 on a TV for the park. Now, you're going to fire a bunch of people or lay them off or whatever we're calling a reduction. How do you tell them we can't afford you anymore, but we're paying $800,000 on a TV? Now, you got 4 other ones on that park, but we need another one because the initial design of the park cut the park in half, and you can't see the stage from half the park that you all voted for. Not everybody was here when you voted for it. $26 million on a park. Now $800,000 on a TV because your chief of staff said, well, maybe some family's having a picnic and they want to see. You have no connections with any promoters that say you're going to get any different acts than you've had before. This park has only lost money in the past. You have no potential of making money on this park. And you're going to lay off people. Brian Caputo stood here and told us how bad it was. $800,000. And then in this budget, you're going to come to the taxpayers and say, we're in such bad shape, we got to raise your taxes. We got to raise the levy. But we spent $800,000 on a TV. So go enjoy that TV the 10 times the park is open instead of just renting it something if you need it for an event. I mean, think about that. Just conceive that, $800,000 on a TV. But we got to raise the taxes. And you know you're going to do it. You know when you go through this budget, you're going to come up, we got to raise taxes. You know you're going to say it. What are you going to do with that TV? I just don't get it. I mean, what mindset says you're in so much trouble, firing people, getting rid of people, but we got $800,000 for a TV? $26 million on a park, $13 million Valley Honda, $800,000 TV. It's not mission critical like you asked. We could do without the TV. Save the $800,000. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Final piece of the mayor's report. I know we already did this largely for a lot of the new council members coming in, but there is an agenda item revolving around the Jumbotron. So I just want to get a short presentation from our Public Works Department. And Aka are going to come up just to answer a lot of the questions that the community members and some council members have had. And then we'll probably save the council discussion for this till that agenda item pops up. So I'll let you take it away. Thanks, Jason.
All right. Good afternoon. Jason Bauer with the Department of Public Works.
And I'm Jim Jarvis. I'm the Chief Marketing and Programming Officer for ACA and then General Manager for River Edge Park.
Okay, so as the mayor said, just going to do a brief recap of what we presented a little earlier this year, but now with additional purchases coming forward to finish off the park. There have been a few questions, so we wanted to go over things and, again, give a status of where things are at and why some of these improvements are needed. So there's the park. This is the rendering that the architect did for us. Basically shows the area of the park in the center of the photo there, that large grass area. That's the area that's going to be served by the Jumbotrons, and you can also see some of the new structures that have been built, including the beverage pavilion on the back of the old hill, the new southern gate, and then there's a new restroom facility there too, and again included is a new backstage facility. And all these structures are well underway and looking to have most of them buttoned up before Chris Kindle Market and then certainly before the concert season next year. So one of the reasons we thought this was a good idea to bring this forward is to really discuss what the purpose of this project was. The park, we're trying to increase the marketability of the venue in terms of getting new acts. We're trying to enhance the patron experience, and then ultimately, at the end of the day, increase the profitability of the park. So to summarize those new structures, with on this rendering, everything that's new to the park is highlighted in blue, from the backstage building, the beverage pavilion, the new restrooms, and the new southern gate. And you can see on that south lawn area where the 2 jumbotrons are going to go. So I think maybe this slide would be a good one for Jim to talk about maybe the marketability of the venue.
Sure. So when you talk to any agent that we work with, obviously agencies in New York and Chicago, everybody tells you the same thing anymore. Chicago is the most competitive concert market in the summer in the United States, with all the different venues you have, festivals like Lollapalooza, Windy City, Smokeout, Soldier Field, Wrigley Field, Ravinia, et cetera, and stuff. So for us, the idea was, they came to us and said, what can we do to increase our profits? What can we do to make sure that River Edge Park is up for getting bigger acts, for drawing more people? And we made the recommendations. It was very simple. Number one was backstage. What Jason was just talking about was marketability is both marketability to agents and artists, and it's out front to the patrons. Backstage, when they built the facility, honestly, and it's no disrespect to anybody, I don't think anybody had a clear understanding of what they wanted to do with this facility. There was one dressing room backstage, and there are 2 bathrooms. To do a tribute band, that doesn't even cover it. The one dressing room is for one person. We've gotten away with a lot over the years on stuff, but what we've seen more and more is agencies are passing on us because we don't have the infrastructure backstage. What you need backstage is you need facilities and dressing rooms for every artist that's there. You need showers, you need bathrooms, you need a proper place to actually feed the artists when they're there. Right now, what we had was we had an old construction trailer we were getting away with, and we were setting up food in there to feed people on things. After a show, people don't realize it, crews have to shower. They're on the road, they're on tour. We were renting rooms over at the Holiday Inn, and we would do day rooms so they can take showers over there. We were getting passed on by multiple bands because we don't have the facilities to have multiple bands on tour. So they'd go to a Ravinia, they'll go somewhere else besides us. So all those things that we built backstage, we built specifically to be able to market to those artists, draw the bigger acts, draw the acts that were getting ready to walk away from us. One of the biggest, most successful acts we have, or most successful, consistent acts we have every year, is a band called Get the Let Out. They sell 6,000 tickets every time out on stuff. We happen to have helped that band early on in their career. We became close with them. I told them that the founder, we were closing the park in 25 for all of this work. And he said, that's great, because honestly, the band's at the point that we've eliminated every facility like yours in the country around. And they really and truly wanted to step away from us if it wasn't for the fact that we had a personal relationship with them. One of the biggest tribute bands, and it is a tribute band, right? It's not even, John Fogerty was going to walk away from us over it. Number 2, out front, a variety of situations. You're talking about making sure we have the best personal experience for patrons. So what we're doing when we're marketing to them, we needed bathrooms. One of the biggest complaints we ever had, and one of the biggest problems we have at the park is there was one set of bathrooms at Earth Deck. Those lines would back up and close off and became safety hazards, as APD would tell you, and we'd have to clear those. To get into those, we brought porta potties out. The problem is most people don't want to use porta potties, and honestly, what we learned, especially from surveys, is most of the women didn't want to use the porta potties. Porta potties are also dark at nighttime, and no matter how much we cleaned them, people wouldn't use them. So we did the basic thing. We added 23 new women's restrooms, 17 new men's restrooms, 3 family restrooms, which wasn't built when the park first started. Another problem was the beverage. So we would set up temporary tents around the park, and we would use those. It doesn't give us enough, number one, lanes that we're actually able to serve the patrons. As most patrons will tell you, the lines got pretty long at times because we weren't able to get in there, set up the POSs, all the systems that we needed to do under these tents. The goal is to make it as smooth as possible, and honestly, one of the biggest ways that we also make money in a venue our size is selling beverages. So well, that's a 20 window, right, Jason? 20 window new serving station that they put in. So now the other problem was the tents. We didn't have draft beer. We had canned beers, limited people's ability and what they really and truly wanted. There was only one location to get draft beers. We would hear that all the time as well. The lines were very long. We had 4 windows over there. That facility right there solves a variety of problems. On top of it, we want to increase the attendance. So that grass area that Jason talked about, that is the only area you're landlocked at River Edge Park at that point. So the grass, we can get up to potentially another 1,000 people in the grass, but obviously one of the challenges is you put people in the grass, and we've got speakers out there, but in this day and age, the reality is jumbotrons are a way of life in the concert industry, so that's why we needed the jumbotrons out there. We also expanded a path out there so we can add additional food trucks, and we have a new area that is a new area out by Gate 4 where the bridge is. That's a new entrance area. That was set up there so we can get people in quicker. We've got permanent storage out there now for wanding people, the things that we need to get people in and out as quickly as possible, wider lanes, et cetera. So that's kind of the overview of the marketability of River Edge and the purpose of it.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. And so one of the other key components to the expansion is also making sure that it works well with the Chris Kindle Market. And you can see another architect rendering here that shows that we're not this year, but next year we'd be expanding the park further south. So we're going to get more vendors, and regionally it's the biggest now.
Right. In fact, we just had, they move in next Monday. Takes 30 days to load in. Right now, we are the biggest Kindle market, bigger than Chicago as far as exhibitors are concerned. And I had a talk with Maran, the CEO from Kindle Market, and their goal is to make Aurora the biggest Chris Kindle market, patron-wise as well, in the state of Illinois. This year, we estimate 325,000 people will come through those doors. That Kindle market right there will truly be the biggest tourist attraction in Aurora. And so we work closely with Chris Kindle Market. We've got a 5-year contract with them. So when we were looking at laying it out and where we're putting spider boxes permanently, how wide we're making bike paths, all of that was taken into consideration as well, so we can continue to grow that piece of business that spills out throughout Aurora.
So here's another rendering. It kind of shows, you can see the one Jumbotron on the left of the screen there. It's just kind of poking out. The other one that's on the beverage pavilion, that's one that we already have that's going to be hung there, but the two that would activate the grass area that actually the grass slopes towards would be in this area. So you can see it's just expanded seating in the grassy area, much like on the front side of the beverage pavilion where people lay out blankets and lawn chairs. And so here's another view of the top of the beverage facility. Right where those steps are, those stairs, that's actually seating. That's about where the hill used to go backwards. So if you've been to a concert there was the big hill in the middle. So everything from those stairs back was essentially dead space. You couldn't use it for anything. The only thing that really happened there were some tables, and that's where some the food vendors would be. But from a concert experience, there was no way to see anything back there. So that's why the Jumbotrons are needed, is to really activate that space, regardless if this facility was here or not. But this facility in and of itself also increases the seating, because now, whereas the slope of the hill was going down, we were building it up, and now there's also another VIP deck up on top as well.
If I could, I do think that's a key point in all of this. That what we did is people were thinking that we split the park in half. The park has not changed any whatsoever. The layout is still the same. What we tried to do is we tried to optimize every space that we can use and put it to good use. For instance, as Jason just said, there's a portion of that hill you couldn't put a seat on because it was slanted down. Now we've gone with the concrete. We can get an extra 200 or 300 people up there. The grass in the back, right? There was nothing back there. They've just got done starting to do landscaping on it for next year and stuff with the Jumbotrons, et cetera. That was space that was there, and some people would sit there. Now we've got a space that we can actually activate and get people to sit in. And for a precedent, just so everyone knows, I know there's been some questions about, will somebody come to a concert to look at a Jumbotron? Ravinia does about 18,500 people. About 15,000 of those people are looking at a Jumbotron. 3,500 are only inside in the theater itself. You go to Soldier Field, you go see the Stones or Beyonce or whoever, first 50 rows, boy, you can see that stage great. Otherwise, you're looking up and you're going to a Jumbotron. It has just become the way of the world, but it's expected as well by patrons that are coming through the doors. And not just back there, what we're talking about. We start to see more and more in the contracts that we have and writers that Jumbotrons need to be on either side of the stage, which is now standard practice across the board. And people wonder about that and go, well, who's watching that? That person in the front row is staring at that artist for a little bit, right until somebody starts doing a guitar solo and starts shredding on the guitar, and everybody's eyes go to that Jumbotron. It's just a part of the patron experience. And now, especially those Jumbotrons that we added last year or 2 years ago to the sides of the stage, are becoming standard practice, and they're being required by artists.
I think you hit on most all of this already, Jim. And there again, there's just another zoomed in view of the rendering that circled in yellow there. That's where the two Jumbotrons would be. And obviously you can see how much more seating it allows for, again, for attracting those larger acts, selling more tickets, and then ultimately turning the corner with profitability. And, between the Jumbotrons and the acts that we can get and the increase in the Kindle market exposure, everything was designed with this park with the idea of making both of those aspects more successful. So I guess just one other thing too to bring up is the contracting history. So we've been breaking this into pieces the entire time we've been going along because of the aggressive schedule and dealing with construction in a park that, again, if we were to try and work around the concert season, I don't even know how we would have done it. So we did make the decision that we would close that down. But even with that, we're trying to build some pretty impressive structures within a 10-month time frame between when Kindle load out occurs in January to when load-in begins in October. So there's not a lot of time to do it. So as we were building things, we were still moving along. We came through not too long ago with the technology or the package for the door strikes and the Wi-Fi throughout the park, which again, Wi-Fi is huge now that we're activating further south to make sure that we have proper Wi-Fi coverage for the vendors. And the last time I was here, I mentioned that the Jumbotron was coming, but just as another reminder, we do still have the furniture and fixtures for the buildings. Actually, we need to put couches and tables and things like that in the backstage building, and then we are still coming forward with the audio bid package. So those three are still coming, and again, we've been doing this, just trying to keep things moving along and trying to hit our key targets for timelines too. And just a quick summary of the budget. We're still working within the GEO bonds that were issued for the project. To date, we've still got about $10 million, give or take, left of work that's already under contract. And then between the Jumbotrons and our estimates for furniture and audio, we're still within the bonds that were sold for this project and a couple others. So we're still working within that original framework. So just from a funding standpoint, just so everybody's aware, the Jumbotrons have been on every picture, and that's really been one of the drivers of activating that space and trying to get as many people into the facility as we can.
And just to be clear on the bonds, those can't be used for the general fund. We can't transfer money into that. They have to be spent on items that can only that we laid out in the bonds. That's what they can
Correct,
be spent
yeah,
on.
yeah,
We
there's
can't
only,
transfer that money.
Yeah, there's only certain things that bonds can be spent on. They can't be spent on personnel or things like that.
Okay. Are you guys both sticking around, able to stick around for when this comes up on the agenda if the council has questions?
Can we ask some questions now, or do you want to wait?
Let's get the public a chance to make public comment, because you might have questions that stem from their public comment as well that you want to have answered.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Schmidt. You have 3 minutes beginning now.
Thank you. Hi, Sandy Schmidt, Ward 5. There's been a lot of discussion about the Jumbotrons. So I watched the September 22nd Infrastructure and Technology Committee meeting and also did some research. The $800,000 is a change order and not part of the original budget. Is this all inclusive, or will there need to be additional items like power sources, wiring, and audio equipment, or is it just for the TVs? Have you done a cost comparison for the last 3 to 5 years of revenue from the concerts and compare that to this change order to see the return on investment? Have you checked into renting them per event? I ask these questions because during the INT meeting on September 22nd, 2025, all statements that were made said, "We believe we'll get more people and it should be beneficial." These are not exact quotes, so please watch the YouTube video, and it was about 28 minutes in for the details. The economy is not getting better. Do you really anticipate having a full venue each time? In 2024, there were 12 concerts, and these concerts are not always family friendly. What if we convert this space back to a park, open up some green spots, and host family events? What about low-cost movie nights with popcorn, setting up badminton courts for tournaments, or having picnic days? Can we please reconsider repurposing the space for other uses? In conclusion, the funding for this and 2 other projects is coming from a general obligation fund. I realize that the bond is already approved, but I think it's important to understand because how much debt we carry and our ability to pay off the bond affects our credit score. This is not free money. An additional $100,000 has already been used because of bad pipes and or pavers were discovered. I believe that this money should be left in reserve for other serious unforeseen issues, and that any money left over at the end of these projects can be used to pay down the bond. Based on the INT meeting, I heard no concrete information to say we'll get more name bands, big name bands, or increased revenues because we're going to have more Jumbotrons. I realize that the council has additional information, and some of it was presented today, on how this might bring value to our community, and that the prior administration has put the city in some serious debt. But because of that, I ask you to consider these factors before you spend our money and make your final decision. So after hearing that presentation today, maybe there are other details behind this. So I don't know if there's like a benefit cost ratio that's been already, you guys have already seen that might make it more believable that we should have this. But as of right now,
your 3 minutes is up.
Since the resident brought this question up, I wanted to check how much does it cost to rent these Jumbotrons and storage costs?
Sure. The Jumbotron's about $14,000 a week for 2 Jumbotrons. And there's still labor involved in putting them up and taking them down.
And then just follow up on that, if we were to rent them,
That's what I'm saying.
we would have to pull them down and store them on our property or store
Yeah,
them
because the
on
park is
somebody else's
still,
property?
that's one of the things, just to clarify, the park's still open during the week. For a Friday show, the park gets shut down around 10 o'clock in the morning on a Thursday, reopens if we don't have a show on a Sunday, about Sunday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, everything, all that comes down so we can open up the park and make it publicly accessible.
Alderwoman Bate, go ahead.
And is it beneficial to have it right away just because all the other construction is happening?
Yeah, I think for a couple of reasons. If we're really and truly looking to activate that area, that you need something back there for the patron experience. If we're going to make that, and right now what we'll do is we'll have families that kind of hang out back there, and there's speakers back there. But if we're really and truly trying to sell people on that as an expanded area, they're going to want to see the show, yeah. And it's, I would assume, Jason, there's a benefit to us because we have to also put up the structures that go along with that.
Correct, yeah. So that's the component of this, that's the change order piece. So the Jumbotrons, we've always planned on buying directly. The 5 Jumbotrons that are there currently, we contracted directly with the vendor. We didn't go through a third party, so there was no need to have that in the Wegman contract. So we've been dealing with the same company that we bought the other 5 from so that everything's the same, all the parts are the same. But there is a change order component to this because we do need them to build the structure. Again, when we started doing everything, we were out to bid for the backstage building before the beverage pavilion building was even completed. Even so much so that the backstage building, we were bidding going vertical with it while we were actually working on the foundations. So the last component of that was we didn't know exactly what was going to hold these Jumbotrons. There was nothing for RC Wegman to get bids on. So that's the change order piece. That piece, and then again there was a large section of the permeable pavers that are out there that needed to be replaced for ADA compliance and for a lot of areas that had been deteriorated, and that wasn't part of the scope either. So that's the change order piece of it. But to Jim's point and to your question, yes, it makes sense to have the Wegman contractors do it while they're there, while the park is torn up, while we have trades that are doing all these same work items, rather than trying to go outside the scope of having those people that are already there inside Wegmans construction fencing with, they're the ones in charge of the safety and the security of everything on site. So to do something other than a change order to do that wouldn't make sense. And we theoretically could come back in a year or 2 or 3 to do it then. But then to Jim's point, then we're potentially going to be causing ourselves that loss of revenue and attraction for other acts.
And the last thing, except for the construction part, were they plan of original design?
Yeah, and that's where I think I highlighted it on the renderings. I think the very first rendering we ever even got from the architect showed that they were there. That was one of the key things that we talked about with them was, finding a way to activate that space. They were doing a rental unit before, but we made a decision along the way, the whole project team, like, if we're going to do this, why are we going to come back and do this one small piece when we're spending all the rest of this money? It should really happen now.
Even if you go back to the May presentation, it says next steps, and it's listed on there as the next step after. Then we were discussing the cameras. Now we're moving to this step. Alderwoman Smith, then I'll come to this side.
Thank you for clarifying that change order piece, because I think it's been confusing to a lot of residents and to some aldermen that the change order was not the actual Jumbotrons themselves. They'd always have been a part of this project. So I appreciate the clarification there. So let's hypothetically go to the, I know you're laughing, I'm hypothetically, right? Go to the fact that the Jumbotrons aren't there. So we own these Jumbotrons now because they're part of the bond, right? We don't put them there. What happens to that big space that we have now created back there?
You've got a big space with a speaker back there, and that would be the extent of it. We would try to market it to get people back there. It's going to be, especially now, as I said earlier, people are just used to it. Jumbotrons all over the place. And so it will be less likely to get people to want to get back there and hit that and truly utilize that space back there to its full capacity.
And I think things like that travel when you have the Jumbotrons back there and people know that they can come late and sit in the back and still see a great concert. I've been to Ravinia many times, and I've watched many a concert on Jumbotrons. I know everybody's trying to, do what we can to penny pinch here and make sure, so that we can get our budget taken care of. But this is something that has been part of this project for since day one. So I do support this, and I appreciate you guys clarifying this whole change order piece for us.
And if I can clarify one point too, the other reason about 2 Jumbotrons, if we looked at the options and worked with Nighthawks, and Nighthawk is the provider of that. So they do Jumbotrons for the Rolling Stones to Taylor Swift. And we also had our AV experts come in. The biggest challenge is doing a single Jumbotron because of the angles on that hill. The problem is a quarter of each side of that hill is not going to have they're going to have a hard time seeing it because it blurs the higher the angle on stuff. So having 2 of those are positioned, and Jason's team has worked, and Wegman and all the folks have worked to make sure it's positioned correctly so they can cover that entire area, give the best experience possible for everybody on the hill.
Alderman Nunez, then Alderman Barrera.
First, I'd like to start with I appreciate everything you do, you and ACA, and Jason, not to leave you out, I appreciate you as well. When I'm looking at the image that was shared in the presentation, I see the large Jumbotron over the drink facility.
Yep.
Right. And then in the corner of this image, you can see one of the Jumbotrons. Just for clarity, what's the size again of the Jumbotron over the food and beverage facility? And then I have a follow-up after that as well.
Oh, yes, sir. They're all the same, and I want to say they're 15 by 12.
Okay. And then what's the distance, if I'm walking away from the screen south, what's the distance where those 2 extra Jumbotrons cross with that from a linear standpoint?
I'd have to dig into that one to get you an actual number.
Do you want to flip to the overhead picture?
Well, yeah, and the reason I ask that is this Jumbotron already enough? Do we really need these other 2 that are coming from the west? And then, as we've seen in the past, let's say, well, with the sun setting in the west, what does that really do for visibility with those screens as patrons are trying to protect their eyes? So
Sure. Actually, this image is a pretty good way to explain it. If you see in that south area how there's lines that go through the hill there? Those are actually contour lines. It's not actually stepped like that. That's just the way that this rendering came out. So if you can see, that's showing you about how much of a grade break there is from the back of the green space along 25 going west towards the river. So if you see all those different grade lines, that's basically sitting like this. So if you think of a movie theater or anywhere else, you'd be sitting on that looking at the 2 new Jumbotrons, whereas if you were looking at the other one, you'd be, tipping sideways. So really,
you have to turn your head a lot.
Yeah. So the Jumbotron that's on the beverage pavilion, we're envisioning, picnic tables, people hanging out there waiting for their beverages. That would work good for those views. And then anybody getting further south, really, they're going to want to be looking towards the west. And I don't know, Jim, if you want to chime in on the sun.
Well, the other thing about that too is, so can you go back to the beverage pavilion picture, if you wouldn't mind, Jason? So there's an area there that you can see that's kind of closer to the end of the picture, farthest away from the pavilion. Those are also picnic tables. So we set up a whole eating area over there for folks. So while people are eating, that's the Jumbotron that's serving the folks that are eating, getting their food, as you said, waiting in line for drinks. When we talked to the consultants about where we're putting the Jumbotron, they didn't think there was going to be a problem with the sun going down, et cetera, in that area and stuff. Yep.
Alderman Barrero?
Yes. Thank you for the information. I'm still trying to get clarity on the change orders. So my understanding is the project had a contingency of about $900,000 roughly, and that we had already spent about half of that. So I'm trying to get clarity as to whether how these change orders are going to affect the amount of contingency we hadn't already spent. Is this going to cause us to go over budget? That's my main question.
No, it won't. But from a contingency standpoint, they set a specific amount of contingency aside that's based on the percentage of the cost of the structures that were part of the original 2 bid packages that Wegman helped us with. So at this point, it might be premature to take money from that when the other buildings are still underway. There is still contingency money left, and if everything works out well and we don't eat into that, then that would just bring the overall project down because it is set aside in Wegman's contract. But those contingencies, like with any project, are for the things that were part of the bid. And since the Jumbotron structures were not part of that bid, we don't want to eat into that and then find out that we have to come back to you all and ask for something later that's a scope change to one of these buildings. For instance, the structural steel that we've had to make modifications on this structure right here. There's little things that go throughout the entire project, and we just don't want to take that money away because that's not really fair to Wegman or their existing contractors to say, well, it's not there anymore. So.
Right. That's an excellent point. So where I'm getting going with this is that the building those structures makes sense to do it now, and replacing those pavers as well. But the Jumbotrons can be purchased later, and we can see how we're going to end up budget-wise, and if we're going to have other change orders, other costs that aren't foreseen, we'll have those dollars, and then we can revisit those Jumbotrons. The other thing that can be done is we have 5, you can move some from the front to the back if that's what is desired to get more people in there. And then the other thing is, I recall when the River's Edge Park was being proposed, there was a lot of discussion regarding naming rights and getting, having opportunities to name things, through donors. Donors want to give money, but they want to see their names and get the advertising. Here's some opportunities to say, hey, you can be the donor for these Jumbotrons and have your business name on there. I just think that we're not doing enough to try to get private dollars to pay for some of these things. And so when you talk about the GO bonds, these bonds are not just for Rivers Edge Park. We have other projects that are going to be paid for by these bonds. We have 3 fire stations. We have some road construction projects. I know we're paying more money for moving utilities up in Belcher and Farnsworth and those kinds of things. So to say that we're going to come under budget, we look at all these different projects that are going all at the same time, it would make sense to put something like this that can be put on hold, to put it on hold, and let's see how everything else falls out. That's just my perspective, because we keep talking about the budget and how much we have a budget crisis, and we're trying to stretch our dollars and cover things that are essential, and that's where I'm coming from.
To your point, excellent point, and that's why I don't have the checkbook. I have to come and present everything, give you the information for all of you to decide. But yep, certainly that is one scenario that could definitely work. Whether it's in the best interest of the park or not, that's up for all of you to decide. But yeah, if we built the structures, there's nothing to say we couldn't hang the jumbotrons in a year or 2 years or 3 years. That's 100% correct.
How would that impact our launch?
Well,
if people's first experience at the park, we really wouldn't be expanding that whole back area. I'm just curious what your perception
Sure.
on that is as you launch the park and we sell tickets back there and people are looking at the river instead of
I
Jumbotrons.
think, again, it's just going to be a harder sell. Put the speaker back there. But if I can address one thing before I forget, I think trying to remove jumbotrons from the front and moving them to the back would be a mistake. At this point, that's a part of that entire patron experience in the front of the stage. I would just leave them up there personally, and I would go with the speaker in back because, as I said before, and some of the artists even call for jumbotrons on either side of the stage as part of their contract. Or, it's just the way of the world anymore in the concert industry. To your point, Mayor, yes, I think it's a harder sell. I think that the reality is that we can still have, that jumbotron over there. It's going to be pretty difficult for people to turn sideways. We actually just solved the problem on the hill with people trying to turn sideways to sit and see a show. I think we'll have the same problem there. I think you'll get some people that will sit back there and, kind of sit for a little bit. The nice thing about the park is, at the end of the day, if we had the jumbotrons didn't, we're unique in the fact of you can sit anywhere in that park, and then you can walk up to the very front of the stage, stand in standing room only for the whole concert, 2 or 3 songs, whatever, and walk away again, which is a huge point for folks. And I think it's great. But I think the reality is, yes, that's going to be one of those situations where you don't have it back there. That's the people, it's, their first impression of what we did, everything we went through to get to that point. And I think that, it would be a harder sell coming back. And I think it could be more expensive in the long run. I don't know what the costs are and how the costs are going up with building or buying jumbotrons. If we didn't do the building, Jason, of all the structures that are needed with the price of steel and stuff, that all goes up again on it. But I think it's a harder sell when you come back after it again. But I fully understand if that's the decision, that's what needs to be done.
Mayor Lesh,
I'll go ahead. Alderman Barrow.
can this be split where we move forward with those that are essential and just take out the jumbotrons and revisit that at a later time?
I could certainly have that ready for council.
What we could do is put it on unfinished business, prepare an amendment to that effect. Then there would be an up and down discussion and vote on the amendment and look at both. We've got a week before council to prepare something.
Yeah, I can do that.
Alderman Bug had a comment question.
I do. Can we go back one slide? I think it's back one, where you see the back of the property with the 2 jumbotrons. Yeah, maybe it's that one.
Yeah, that one right there.
Was there?
Oh, the wide shot? There's one circled, I think, Jason.
Yeah. Not sure which direction it is, though.
Yeah, right, that one.
Whoop.
This one?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So, Mr. Jarvis, you said the entity that we were talking to said that they did not see a problem sitting on that back lawn and looking west into the sun. Can we have some concrete examples of venues from them where you're sitting on a back lawn looking directly west into a setting sun and there's no issue?
Sure.
Yeah, we need some examples because I know just on sitting on the deck at times and looking in the sun, you're higher up.
Right.
But there were definitely issues looking in that direction. I don't know, the angle where you are on the lawn, and then you say the jumbotrons are 17 by 14?
Yeah,
Or
they're
thereabout?
15 by 12,
Okay,
something like
thereabout.
that. I can fine tune that.
So, it's a different angle, but I think we need some concrete, examples
Sure.
of that. Yeah, I think that's going to be really helpful, because if we don't have those and then we open up and you get a bunch of people back there and they're like, oh my God, I can't see anything. I'm blinded by looking at them. We've kind of missed our chance to kind of look at that. So,
Any other, Alderman Franco?
With the renovations rather at the park, how many more people do we think we'll be able to get in there?
At least 1,000.
1,000 more? Give us a total of what, 7,000?
Yep, 7,000.
Okay, thank you.
How much revenue?
Alderman Seville?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And how much revenue is that 1,000 people?
It all depends on the ticket price, right? And it's also the ticket price that also increases the fees that we have. That on the tickets, it also increases beverage and food revenue on top of it.
Mm-hmm. And Jim, when you, in your experience, and you've been doing this for a long time, obviously, when you say it's a harder sell, can you be more blunt than that?
Sure, I think that
what would be truly the ramifications if we don't move forward in the way that was originally?
My gut is we're not going to get many people to want to go back there. Once we hit a certain point, yeah, people are going to come back, see there's nothing back there. Even though it's going to look pretty and it's got food vendors all over, that I just stand by the fact of everybody's used to the Jumbotron era in the concert world now. And so I think that it ends up being a space that's very rarely used.
And then what will that do to the types of acts that decide to come here or not?
Well, when we start projecting on our capacity, we would probably eliminate, as we're putting in offers and doing budgets, that we're going to sell. We'll keep track of how much we're selling and how many people are sitting back there. And then next time we put an offer in, we'll adjust accordingly, knowing, we can get 200 people that will take that or 100 people that will take that. And then we can't go after certain acts because it has that impact on it. We just lost 900 ticket sales.
Mm-hmm. And the whole purpose of this project was to?
Yeah, the whole purpose of the project, I think, was, the whole purpose was, they came to us and said, what can we do to enhance this facility, make sure that it's got legs in the long run, and that we can increase the size acts and increase profitability. And so that's how that all came. Every piece in here, and Jason and I were talking about it recently, everything that has been designed all intertwines with one another, right? That new Gate 4 entrance that we're doing is made to be easier for people. You can come off the bike path. You don't have to walk through the mud, which you have to do now. You come off the downtown area and walk right into the park. The bathrooms that you're not waiting in long lines anymore. That whole area in the back where, we have the Jumbotrons, which we can actually use on the week to show movies. And the mayor actually had brought that up before, and we had a meeting on it. The beverage pavilions to be able to, 20 windows, and be able to deal with folks quicker, get them back out, watch the shows. The sky deck above allows us to get more sponsorships. Right now we have 2 sponsorship decks that we can sell, and people are looking to expand. We can add an extra 200 to 300 people up on the hill because of the cement and or whatever the cement that's on the top of the hill.
Yeah, the tiered.
Yeah, and then the back is absolutely designed to be able to accommodate bigger acts who didn't want to look at us. And I will tell you this, as we're putting out offers now, and I think we've got about 25 offers out for 2026. We've been asked already by agents when we tell them they've gone through the $25 million or whatever, $23 million renovation, and we explain that we've got this new artist building, and they've literally said, great, can you send us what it's going to look like, and then can you send us what the inside is laid out as? So we have adapted the architectural drawings, and we send that as well. So you can see you've got plenty of dressing rooms now, you've got showers, you got everything that you need to actually accommodate a band, multiple bands if we need to.
Mm-hmm. And you said earlier that the Chicagoland market is the most competitive market in the nation.
Yeah.
And so by making a change in what we originally intended to do, what you're really saying is we're now choosing not to be that competitive with everybody.
Yeah, I truly think that every little thing that we have anymore, it's a fight for, especially with, I said, all the different venues that we have on staff. I mean, Orland built a venue now, and Ottawa is building a venue, and so everybody around us, but especially the big ones. And so every little thing that counts, right? We have artists that come through, they love playing River Edge Park. They love looking out there and seeing the city in the backdrop. But at the end of the day, they don't want to get off that tour bus anymore, which they want to do because they're on the road for 3 months because we don't have a facility for them. That we need that extra edge to be able for them to go back and go, yeah, we want to come back next year. We want KISS to come back, or, we One Republic or some of the shows we've never been able to do before that won't look at us anymore because we don't have that infrastructure.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Any other questions from the council? Okay, so for next week, we will put this on unfinished if you want to work with staff to prepare an amendment to accomplish what you're looking to accomplish.
Mayor.
And we had one other question about that you'll get back to Alderman Vaughan.
Yes, sir.
With respect to some sort of perspective on the sun and visibility. Alderwoman Smith.
Is there a way that you can do some type of a numbers part where, let's just say, that 1,000 people area is unused, depending on the ticket price, how much revenue you think we will lose on food and beverage because now we have this empty space there versus, the same ticket price if we had those people there, what we think they'd be spending, so that we can see, we really need to see what we're losing by giving up this and we have to look at this in dollars and cents as well. It can't just be, we can't piecemeal. If we're going to look at it, we got to go in all the way. So whether it's an inexpensive ticket and the whole family's coming, or whether it's one of our high-end tickets and it's just adults, what that would look like as far as food and beverage income and revenue to the city.
You bet.
Thanks.
Understood exactly what she wants, and we'll probably just want to put one slide together on that. Hopefully we don't have to go through the whole presentation, but it's basically presenting some scenarios, I think, is what you're wanting to look at. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Alderman Benuelos.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on her request, can you also provide how many sold-out concerts you had last year and the year before?
It's really probably not going to be.
My apologies. Yeah, not 20. Just give us the rundown, the numbers of how many sold-out concerts you've had, and I guess just the revenue we've received at these concerts.
One thing to say, I don't think that'll be an apples-to-apples comparison, simply because you're moving from cover bands to hopefully something bigger that will attract more people. But I would say if you can provide ticket numbers on this show, this many.
You bet.
Okay. Thank you for all your time.
Thank you.
Jason and Jim.
Next item, gladly. 25-0741, a resolution authorizing the Director of Purchasing to execute a change order to the existing contract with Ratio Architects in the amount of $105,270 for design services at Ridge Park.
Correction. First of all, I want to just say that I read the wrong agenda item. so the unfinished is 250740. And then agenda item 250741, which is connected. Go ahead, Alderman Barrero. Is that right?
Unfinished?
Unfinished on this one as well? Okay.
They're tied together. I have another question as well regarding this.
On this agenda item, you have a question? Okay. Go ahead.
And we are talking about 25-0741, correct? Yes. Okay. I want to make sure since we... a question regarding... I'm trying to find it exactly. Jason, we talked about this at the last committee meeting.
Yes.
There were additional services that arose from newly discovered site conditions. The architect relied on the accuracy and completeness of the survey by the owner and its consultants. So has legal reviewed any contracts that show who's actually liable for this extra work that we now have to pay for?
I was not paying as much attention as I should have to your question. Can you repeat it?
Has legal reviewed the contracts regarding this project to see who's actually liable for the extra expenses that we now are being asked to pay for, due to some lines that we apparently weren't aware of?
Let me ask the question differently. Are we the ones asked for the change order?
Correct, yeah. So I guess there were two lines that were in the way. One, whichever way they would have been found, we would have had to do a change. But we elected to change the footprint of the building to accommodate where the two lines were, rather than go through the time and expense of relocating utilities, which would have been more. So we made the decision, hey, what can you do, architect? And they said, oh, well, we can modify this floor plan a little bit, and we can modify this floor plan a little bit, and that saved us a lot of money from having to go through a relocation process. So it was more, we kind of made the decision moving through, it makes more sense at this stage of the game. We don't want to move our 60-inch storm sewer to accommodate the foundations. We don't want to work through ComEd and experience any kind of delays or any costs to have them move as well. So it was a very small change order in those regards. I mean, there were a lot of little $20,000 pieces, but the storm sewer relocation would have been massive. And then another part of the foundation redesign that was a big chunk of this was they came up with some unique foundations that were able to trim the cost of the foundations on the beverage pavilion by somewhere around like $300,000. So each one of the change orders through the contractor or through the architect resulted in savings from a construction standpoint that we would have had to bear regardless.
Yeah, and I remember during committee, Alderman Masiak was mentioning the projects of this size, these things happen. But again, as I'm reading this, they relied on the accuracy that either us or consultants provided to them. So, we saved $200,000 plus on the cameras. We're looking at the Jumbotron now, that's another $800,000. And, we're looking at another $100,000 here. So again, my question would be, who does it really fall on? Is it Was it on the city? Was it on the consultants that are working with the architects? And, again, as we talked about, it plays fall on us.
Maybe a better question might be the change order process is pretty common in construction because you always, especially remodels and renovations, you don't know what you're going to run into. I would say, how often do we involve legal in these issues? Usually it's when it starts to balloon and there are fingers starting to point about it was this person's fault. Just being in construction, I know Alderman Mesiakos is also an architect and probably goes through this in his daily life.
Yeah, specifically with these we knew that the gate building had to go where it went, and we knew the beverage pavilion had to go where it went. So, rather than paying for the utility relocations, which we could have done by, to say, hey, we really want this floor plan to be exactly like this. This building had to go right here. And for the beverage pavilion building, all those foundations had to go where they went, just by the layout of the building itself. So it was more, we could go down that road. There's a lot of relocations we do. There's another agenda item here where we're going to be relocating some fiber for a roadway. That's a lot easier than the time and expense it would have taken to relocate these. And there's a small amount of play in the buildings that made sense to just go that route. And with the foundations having to go right where they were, yeah, that was the easier route for us. And again, then there was another chunk of foundation redesign in there, which ultimately saved a lot of money. So
it's typically it's a process, and part of the process, it's not something typically involve legal in.
Yeah, well, and I think the other part of it too is we had a lot of schematics and things drawn before we had even given them all the detailed survey information or any of those things anyway. So they were kind of already down the path before we even.
I think the question you may be asking is, did he perform per his original contract before this change order came up? And did he complete his contract obligations?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Once a professional finishes their services for a specific product and it goes out to bid, they're complete, especially if it's signed off on by the owner. So anything above and beyond that afterwards is naturally a change order. Start trying to figure out, pointing fingers and trying to separate the needle from the haystack at this point, when I don't even know if there is something we're supposed to be looking at, is a grave concern, because it also sends out a very irregular message to anybody who is looking to do more work with our city moving forward, professional services, and the rate that they're looking to add on, if not to do a project here, meaning added costs because of what they may have concern with how we work with them. So,
and that's a fair point. But again, as we answer to all of our constituents and we continue this conversation of the financial situation in our cities, and I think it's our responsibility as elected officials up here to ask these questions so that those watching now or sitting here in the room with us understand that we are asking these proper questions, and especially with the topics that we've just been going through again around the budget itself.
No, it's a great question, and if it wasn't something where we were of the opinion that they were owed additional compensation, we shoot down a lot of change order requests too.
My last question is, when you talk about this, we save money going this route. Could you talk about how much money you would guesstimate?
So one of the major changes on the foundation for the beverage pavilion, there's a long walkway for ADA compliance, so that someone can actually take a wheelchair up the ramp to get to that new VIP deck. That original foundation was based on everything that we had available with the borings and the rock location. Those were going to be of the same foundation system that the rest of the beverage pavilion was on. And as we started going through the costs of what that was actually going to look like, it was going to be, and again, don't quote me on it, but it was somewhere in the $200,000 to $300,000 range that we were going to save by not having to do drilled piers for that. So they were able to redesign it with what's called ground modifications, and then going to a more standard, a conventional footing with footings, with a conventional foundation with footings at a much less burial depth. So that in and of itself really helped pay for things and keep things moving along on schedule and under budget too.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions on this agenda item? This agenda item will also go on unfinished business.